All right, this is going to be like the third or fourth video of the course, and we're talking about resting and relaxing. So this is something that's super underrated when it comes to learning something new. Even if you're like going, I always relate things going back to the gym. So if you're going to the gym and you're not resting, you're never going to build the muscle. And the same thing comes with the math and English stuff. You're going to have to think about these things outside of class time. That's probably one of the biggest things that I see my students struggle with is they think if they show up to class, pay attention during class, and then go watch Game of Thrones for the rest of the day, that they're going to get better. And the truth is they might, because now they're spending an hour or a couple hours here and there actually studying. But if they skip the Game of Thrones, or if they even reduce Game of Thrones to like an hour instead of like 6 hours, they can spend that extra time just thinking about what they've learned. If you spend even an extra half hour of your day just thinking about what you learned or journaling about what you learned, you're going to retain it much, much better. You're going to remember what you learned and how to apply it, right? Because what we're going to be focusing on this class is tests. We're training you for a test. So you're going to become a better test taker the more that you think about your test taking strategy. And it's always going to come back to back solving and all these different tools that we use to solve and beat the test. So try to think about class outside of class, but don't overwhelm yourself. And so that means make sure there's time where you're not overthinking. Specifically with fractions, students always overthink fractions. They like divide by the denominator, by the denominator, by the denominator, like 3 times for just because they can. And the truth is it's probably simpler. You probably, if it's 3/4, it's just 3 divided by 4. That's it. It's not a bunch of 4s or anything like that. It's just 1, 3, 1, 4, and there's a line between them. And so it's 3/4, 3 divided by 4. And students always flip it around and everything because they're overthinking. And the cure for that is to spend some time not thinking so much. So make sure that you're doing things to fill your cup. You know, if you've studied 5 times this week, make sure that on Saturday you play your video game or get your ice cream or do whatever it is that makes you happy. Do something to reward yourself for all the time that you're working. The last thing you want to do is work really, really hard for 2 weeks and then burn out and feel worse than you did when you started, because that's not what I'm about. I'm definitely about slow, continual progress. And it's tortoise versus the hare. You know, it's classic parables. Slow and consistent is going to beat sprinting every single time. If you're continuously putting in 30 minutes per day over a month, you're going to beat that person who spends 8 hours per day for the first week. You're going to beat them every single time because you gave yourself time to rest and reflect and think about what you learned, and then you can review it and everything like that. So remember to take your rest days. For this task, I want you to figure out how you plan to reward yourself at the end of each lesson, and then at the end of each week, and then at the end of each study session. So at the end of each lesson, every video that you watch here, at the end of each week where you feel like you studied enough, and at the end of each study session. That's the most important, the time you spend on your own learning. How will you reward yourself for that to make sure that you follow through on it? All right, guys, see you in the next one.